Warning, the sculpt you're about to see is deeply concerning, but somehow I managed to redeem myself. This was supposed to be a 2-hour sculpt, and I really thought that would be enough, but that didn't happen. The initial blockout phase always looks really strange. They just kind of look like a Tim Burton character. And this is where I think I'm actually doing like an okay job of refining the face, but I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to look at references to figure everything out, but it's a little bit of a struggle. So I threw on some quick placeholder ears. At this point, I'm trying to figure out what size eyes I need, and I use an array to measure it out, forgetting that she's an anime character and is gonna have really large eyes. I always do this thing where I make everything smaller and smaller because it never seems to fit the overall head that I started with. Then I blocked in where the mouth should go. I'm messing with Dyn Topo. It's not something I really typically ever do. I always just use the voxel remesh. We're getting a little out of our comfort zone. At what point did I think what I was doing was right? Robin has a sharp, narrow face, and the first version looked nothing like her, so I kept narrowing the face. I got sucked into the lips too early, adding more detail than I needed to before I got the structure figured out. And the more I sculpted, the worse it got. And that's when I realized things were really starting to look strange. But suddenly, bam! She looks like a Falmer from Skyrim mixed with that one guy from Ratatouille. So now she had lips, sure, but she also has this really uncanny expression and her mouth sits way too low. At this point, I was just kind of hoping for the best. And there it is, the look of defeat. Contemplating if this is even worth it, if I should restart, or if I can even fix this. This is the beginning of my redemption arc. I had to reset everything I was doing. I lowered the resolution, I reshaped the face a little bit, things were looking a little bit more up, but it's still kind of appalling. I realized the eyes needed to be way bigger to hit that anime look. This is the tough part with stylized stuff. If you don't already understand the rules of anatomy, it's really hard to break them on purpose, and I don't really understand the rules of anatomy. I know I should be studying anatomy properly, muscle groups, bone structure, all that kind of stuff, but if I'm being honest, right now I'd rather just learn by sculpting characters I actually care about. And it's not fast progress, but at least I'm having a good time. But you do what you gotta do. I did, however, try a new way to sculpt the eyes. I added some clay and carved out the eyelids, and I think it worked a little bit better than usual. I always struggle with making the eyebrows the way I want to. Robin has these very narrow, sharp eyebrows. At this point, I didn't really realize that her eyes aren't supposed to be this upturned on the outside. For the nose, I wanted something super thin and angular like usual, but, you know, still functional. So I did give her some tiny nostrils so she can breathe.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Eyelids have been something I really struggle with lately. They're pretty much my nemesis. Usually I rely on the crease polish brush. This time I tried the pinch brush and the scrape/fill brush. Game changer. I have way more control, things are looking a lot better. It's still not perfect or great by any means, but it's definitely an improvement from where I've been before. This was right around the 2-hour mark, and I couldn't just leave her like that. I was trying to give her some of those pointy, stylized anime eyelashes, but I was having an issue with the shrink wrap modifier. I then realized I don't really need it, so we got rid of it. But at this point, Blender crashed. Unfortunately, I lost the eyelashes that I was working on and her nostrils. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise because the new eyelashes are simple, but they turned out pretty good. Also, for once, I remembered to actually give her a neck. Most of my sculpts just end up being floating heads, but Robin deserves better. You're welcome, again. Now onto the hair. Hair sculpting is the worst. It's tedious and it never turns out how I want, but it's so important for character recognition, I had to spend some time here. Robin's had a few different hairstyles over the years, so I just went with the one that felt most recognizable without being too complex. Or at least my take on it anyway. I really didn't know what I was gonna be doing with the hair at this part. I was trying a few different things and nothing was really working. So we went a completely different approach. We're just not gonna talk about that. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff right there. And we're still playing around, we're learning things, we're figuring stuff out. Back to the lashes again, because I still couldn't get them to sit right without clipping or floating weird. There I go again, making the face longer than it needs to be. Her eye shape still also fell off, so I ended up tweaking the corners and pulling them down a bit. That helped a lot. Really, it's just patience, constantly checking references, comparing proportions, and adjusting things until it clicks. I'm hoping eventually that hair becomes a little bit more therapeutic instead of just a chore, because it's really tedious sometimes. Merging the hair strands into the head naturally is also something I haven't quite figured out how to do. They always feel stuck or just kind of strange, but I didn't want to keep messing with it forever, so I called it good enough and moved on. And after all that, here it is. So looking back, I can't believe we made it all the way here from here. It's definitely not perfect and I have a long ways to go, but I'm really happy with my results. I added just a little bit of color to the hair and eyes, just enough to help sell her look a little bit. And honestly, I'm really happy with how it's turned out, especially considering how cursed the early stages were. Let me know in the comments who I should sculpt next. I'm documenting my whole sculpting journey one weird sculpt at a time. So if you're learning too, let's figure this out together. And if you just started your own sculpting journey and need a little pick-me-up, here are 7 tips that helped me out a lot when I started sculpting. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching.